here today addressing you as Chair of Renewable UK's Marine Strategy Group. I had hoped to bring a box along for a swear box for the other word. I won't mention the B word. It will be Renewables UK. And I think it really is exciting to see what's happened since we last met in Bath just a year ago, and just what progress our industry has made. And I think I want to look at some of those just briefly this morning and talk a little bit about the progress and what is ahead of us in the coming year when we look forward to the next wave entitled 2011. The change in name is very important to our industry because it does mean that we're recognised as the trade association, as recognising the marine part of its activities as being important. And I think that's something that we should take on board and make sure that we deliver to the trade association the same kind of input that WIN has done over the years. A particular thanks to Oliver Ragg, who is the Renewables UK man that put this event together. He organises the Marine Strategy Group and works with me in looking at the agenda and so on. Oliver's put in a tremendous amount of work, and I can say that the work that he puts in is particularly difficult this week, because while he's been planning this event, of course we had the MAP document come out, and he put together our response to that. And I know that that took some time because I received it about 1 o'clock in the morning yesterday. So he's been balancing these two. So my thanks goes to Oliver for all of his input to the work that the group does. I think this issue about the UK leading in the marine renewables, we've got to be very careful here. We have got the lead. We're doing some tremendous work, but there are a number of countries that are very keen to catch up with us, and of course to try and take that lead from us. I think it's worth saying that the news on the SEA being committed to now is good news. I think if it's going to get underway by the end of the year, we've got to play our part making sure that the scoping agreement is right, and that we put the effort behind that to get the SEA underway, because without that it will become an impediment to not just this industry but to others in the marine area. Some of the developments that have been going on this year, I think Maria mentioned quite a number of them, and I think it's important just to reflect on those, that we have seen devices now in the water clocking up real hours, and that's a huge step forward. We've been talking about it's almost there for some years now, and it's promising a lot. It's absolutely superb to see that that's now actually coming to fruition. And talking to Neil Kermode up at EMEC, and just to see the amount of interest that's going on up there in terms of getting devices in the water in the coming years, I think is also very exciting. I think MCT, the work that they've been doing in Strangford Lough, is particularly important in the tidal side, because here we have a grid-connected device clocking up 1,000 hours and going on, and I think that is a fantastic achievement. And one of the things that I was particularly pleased to hear is that, I'm told from a good source, that up at EMEC we've seen some VP vessels from the oil and gas industry actually working in these difficult water conditions, both wave and tidal, and being able to position themselves and do work in those areas. If you look at what MCT have achieved installing a device in that water, I think we're starting to see some of the operational things moving forward, and I think that's equally important as seeing prototype devices themselves coming through. I look forward to seeing both OPT and Palamas, who are in fabrication at present, getting into the water in the coming year, and I think that will mark a big step forward in the wave side, and I think that will be an important marker for the industry as well. And of course, other people such as Pulse down in the Humber and Open Hydro also clocking up hours of time in the water is all good news to the industry. I think the development of technologies is still an important part to play in our industry. We are still at the very early stages, and it would be foolish to think that we've cracked all the problems because we've seen a few devices in the water. So I think we've got to keep our feet on the ground and continue to work towards getting both hours clocked up and also technology development continuing to improve and come through with new ideas. Of course, we've also seen further investment from the government in the infrastructure, and I do thank them for the contribution that they've put into NAREC in particular, in our resources in terms of test facilities for onshore. EMEC, of course, with more cables in the water, broadening the capabilities of EMEC, very important. And then lastly into Wave Hub and seeing that project move forward. The infrastructure is extremely important. It's often it's misunderstood in terms of the importance of that infrastructure to a developing industry. It's not only the proving ground for technology, but it's also a big pull to people coming here to try their technologies at prototype stages. And that gives us the ability to keep the lead in technology development. But also as we go into places like EMEC and the Wave Hub, it'll be the operational and through life activities that will be beginning to get the expertise and continue to maintain a lead over the whole of the industry, not just the technology development itself. We've also seen major developments in the finance side over the year. I think the Minister mentioned MRPF and MRDF. I think one of the problems I've always believed that the UK had was that government funding was disjointed, that we had so many different sources of funding. The level might be not too bad in terms of what's being achieved, but this multi kind of government agencies that deliver it being uncoordinated and so on was always a concern to me. I think we're now starting to see that some of that is being pulled together, and both the actions of the TSB and the Carbon Trust, I think, beginning to recognise that there is a need to join up all of these different sources of funding to help to accelerate technology through. I'm not saying for 1 minute that it's perfect. I think we've got a lot to do in that area, but I think we are starting to recognise that that's important. And of course, the commitment of further funding through MRPF in particular is very welcome, and the fact that the Carbon Trust very quickly have brought out that funding to 6 device developers is very reassuring that the commitment is really there to deliver something. I think the other big development that was seen is the Marine Bill, and I think that's a very important piece of legislation, one that I hope will see the consenting process beginning to become more streamlined and perhaps more clear as to what needs to be done. And I think probably in the near future that most of this is going to come under the MMO, and I think that's quite encouraging because the MMO is, as a body, has got expertise within it to make assessments, and that should lead to a speedier consenting process, but time will tell. I think it's also worth mentioning the Crown Estate, and in particular the efforts that they've been putting into the Pentland Firth. It's an exciting sort of area to look at, because I think here we're seeing another part of government, a different agency altogether, but beginning to plan forward and trying to look and see what it can do to generate interest in the industry, but also to accelerate us from technology development through to a full industrial generation. And I think that work is got to be ongoing. We've got to start looking at similar sites around the rest of the UK, because I think there are people that will want to develop different types of resources, so I would be looking for the Crown Estate perhaps to be looking at similar projects around the coasts, both of England, Wales, Northern Ireland, to complement what we're doing in the Pentland Firth. In all of these areas, I would stress that Renewable UK, in particular the Marine Strategy Group, has been inputting to all of these consultations, all of these proposals from government, and it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and of course it's the input from yourselves as the industry that is extremely important. I would encourage you to continue to feed into Renewables UK on these kinds of issues, because it is listened to. I think government relies very heavily on the messages that come from us in terms of where industry's thoughts are and how they can help industry. And I would like to think that a lot of the positive things that have been achieved in the last year have come about as a result of our activities. I think it's also important that industry does work closer with government, and I think the MAP exercise has been a tremendous idea in its pulling together both government industry players into one concerted effort to look at where the issues are, what the challenges are we face, and to start looking for some of the answers that are in there. and while I'm quite sure that those that have read the output from MAP is that this is still a very early stage of a process, it's the first draft. I would like to see a lot of things improved in it as we go through towards a final document, and I think it's incumbent on us to feed into that process as we go through. And as I say, Oliver put together a superb document that represented the broad interests of the industry and fed that into DEC. I think as we go forward, I think we shouldn't forget that the devolved administrations also have a big part to play in this, and Scotland certainly has been pushing ahead with its own action plans and its own initiatives, and we work very closely with our trade association counterparts across the border at the SRF to input with them to get a broad industry view, and I think that's very important that we don't see the devolved parts of the UK as being separate. We are all in one area, but we've all got different drivers, if you like, that are in there to push us forward at different rates. And I welcome all of these initiatives because all of them add to pressure on the industry to move forward. I think it's also essential that we work with the other industries, oil and gas, carbon capture and storage when it comes along. We're all going to be active in this marine environment, and of course offshore wind. The North Sea is going to become fairly cluttered if we carry on the way we're going with all these different technologies. So it's important that we work with other industries to learn from them, but also to contribute to their development. I think the role that RenewableUK has played in supply chain, and I would say that we've got a third supply chain event coming up in Aberdeen on the 18th of May, and I would encourage you to come along to that and support that, because again, these supply chain events are very, very important in trying to share the experience. I think the success of the previous ones that we've run is particularly is worth noting, and that these should be continued. Crown Estate is also doing their own supply chain work around offshore wind, and I think it's encouraging to see that some of the work that we started off in the supply chain events is being picked up by others, and the value of it being recognised. I want to come back to finance because it's the area that concerns me most, and while I'm delighted that we've got additional funding from government, I think the position that the Marine Strategy Group has developed and put into government in this still recognises that while we seem to be dominated talking about rock values, should it be 2, 3, 5, 10? I think we're kidding ourselves if we believe the industry is anywhere near the point where the rock mechanism is going to be important as the main driver. It's extremely important to get the rock message out to industry to reassure them that there is a long-term commitment from government. And I think in that sense we're coming up to a rock review, but if we spend our time running around in circles trying to decide whether it is 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever the number is, we're going to miss the most important part. And that is that this industry is still in the early stages and it needs direct grant and help to